Hi, I'm Lynn Looney, and this is a basic blended background. This is a very traditional approach to painting. This is from one of the pieces that I did in the summer of 2020. One of my followers couldn't remember how to do it, so I'm revamping and revisiting that background. I do new designs every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time at Lynn Looney Studios. And also, if you find this video and any of the others on my channel helpful, by all means, please do subscribe, hit that bell so you get notifications. This is what I'm going to be doing today. This is a blended traditional background, multicolored in acrylics. And stay tuned till the very end for some additional information. Okay, I'm gonna work. This is a special request. This is a piece that I did, I think in the spring or summer of 2020. I'm not going to be repeating this particular lesson, but I did get a request. The person wanted to know about this blended background. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this lesson. Not the owl, but just that background, just that blended background. This technique that I'm going to show you, I learned nearly 60 years ago. It's very traditional. It utilizes a number of colors. Now, I will talk about the colors I've got. I've got a cerulean blue that's going to be grayed down. I've got a dioxide purple, and that's going to blend into a sienna into kind of an ochre. Oh, this one's got some nicks on it. I probably need to do some repair on this while I'm at it. Okay. And we're just, like I said, we're going to take the owl out, and I'm just going to do the entire thing as a blended background. And we're going from dark to light, middle ground to middle ground, okay? And kind of a highlight here, and this highlight was put in because I knew that the owl was gonna need to have some dark. So we've got dark and light, dark and light. If you were to take a black and white of this, these gray tones in here are virtually the same. But, you know, we've got these two areas of higher contrast, all right? And what I usually do is, this is just a mist of water to make sure that the paint glides. And I have a wide brush, and the stroke is a half moon, kind of a crescent shape. I'm going to be doing it quickly, so I'm doing it very slowly so you can see it very slow. All right, it's going to be a half moon, and I'm doing it on a piece of paper. And you need to be working fairly quickly because you're blending lights and darks, different colors. Okay, so that was a combination of dioxide purple and burnt sienna. Now I'm coming in with a little ochre and sienna. Same stroke. I'm doing a little bit of blending, but not too much, and I'm not getting way up in there with that other color. All right, and I'm using that same stroke. I'm going to come in with, I've got a little orange. I haven't cleaned my brush yet. I'm still working with that the same things. Very light touch. And the neat thing about acrylics is, you know, and you have to watch, because if you're stabbing in here, you're going to wind up making these little, I call them divots. I'm coming back over here. Now I've got cerulean blue. This is all still wet. I'm still grabbing. Now I'm going to bring a little bit of white. So I've got this smoky gray that is from the orange and sienna and the purple that's already on my brush. And what I'm going to do probably is do this, let it dry, and come back and do this a second time. Another way that you can approach this is by putting a tone all over the canvas before you start. So if you have these little divots, you're not going to see white. You're going to see that other, the other color underneath. Okay, and instead of water, you can also use a little medium. They also have retardants, products that retard the drying of acrylics. I have personally never used them, but that's partly because, you know, guys, I've been doing this for 60 years. So I've got a you know, kind of a better handle. Now see, this is already beginning to dry. See how that picks up? Okay, this is not blending as much now because that part has dried, but that's okay. We're going to come back and do this again, and that's to help get rid of some of those. Actually, this area would have been under our owl, so it wouldn't have been all that critical. But see how much we've gone from a dark down here to the light? I have used nearly a half a dozen colors so far, and this was one of the backgrounds that we used, and then we'd have this floating bouquet of flowers or apple blossoms, or, you know, there was a whole variety of things that art teacher would have us do. It looks a little rough right now. See, this is still wet and it's still blending. I'm just doing this on a piece of paper as a demo. But see how you got the brush where it's starting and stopping? There's a point where you want to just kind of stop and let it dry. I've got cerulean and white. And I'm just lightly bringing this in, and I've still got that gray is still wet, so it's blendable. And I'm making these strokes a little bit smaller now. Okay. And while I've got it on my brush, I'm going to bring a little bit over here. Very light touch. Very light touch. And this, like with anything else that you do, guys, you got to practice. Okay. And we're not as smooth yet, but that's because this is our first coat. Our very first coat. And here's just pure dioxide purple. I've still got a little bit of that blue on my brush. I don't know that that's blending anymore, but I'm doing that over that dark that we had up in the corner. It's a little tacky. But that's mostly sienna, and dioxide purple is making that really dark. If this winds up getting too muddy, just let it dry completely. Let it dry, and then continue and do a second application on top. And I think that's what we did in that lesson, if I remember right. I'm trying to remember. I dropped my laptop last year, and I lost a number of my pre-recorded lessons. And I'm thinking the owl might have been one of those. I don't remember. I have to look back. Okay. So now I've got a little bit of orange and white. And I've got some ochre and orange. When I first learned this, I was working in oils. I started in oils, and something like this was very easy to do in oils because the oils stayed wet. And then if you blended, and it just got totally muddy, you could just take a rag and some thinner and literally wipe it off the canvas and start again. All right, with acrylics, instead of that, you let that undercoat dry and work on top of it. Come down here and put a little more dark. Trying to see if that's blending, picking up and blending. This is a round brush. I'm getting divots again. I need to let this dry. Okay. So we get another good blend. But I can't tell you how many of these I did as I was learning painting. But this is for those traditional backdrops, backgrounds. And look, see, I just keep picking up all these different colors. And then how nice that is whenever you've got a little bit. That's literally dry brushing. I'm not blending there. It's one color overlapping on top of another color. I'll have to come back. But it's just picking up another color. I've got some lighter in my brush. Squeeze that out. All right. I'm going to go away and let this dry, and I'll come back to it. Okay? Okay, while that piece is drying, I made mention that there were some boo-boos on some of this. These have been banged around, moved around quite a bit. And let me show you how easy it is to blend these. This is like months old, nearly a year old. And I'm coming back with sienna and dioxide purple for my dark. And with that same stroke, here on this side, it's a little more sienna and orange. And see, I don't have to actually blend it for it to be obscured, that dark area to be obscured. Okay, here's I don't know if you can see this. Let me get close. You see those imperfections? Now I'm going in here with a lot more white. The same palette. I've got ochre, I've got orange. It's a little bit dark. They're mowing outside. I don't know if you can hear, if you're catching that, picking that up. But I've come close to the color, and just because of those strokes, it blends. Okay. Sounds like it's in my yard, but it's not. It's across the street. And even around my signature, look at that. I can make that correction. And if you hadn't seen that, you probably would never know that I did any kind of repair work on it. But because of all those different colors, use that wide range of colors. You know, since I've got that orangey orange, I might just come back here and put a little bit more orange on this side. And come back on top of that. Okay, now I've done the repair work on this piece. I'm going to get here's the piece I was doing earlier. And like I said, it's pretty rough. But now I'm going to, and I'm working with a slightly smaller brush now. Here's ochre, a little white. And again, you remember this last one had the owl in the middle. But this is a traditional, I call it a traditional blended background. I said that I learned when I first started taking art lessons, and that was all technique. It was all on, this is how you do a leaf, this is how you do a sky, this is how you do a blended background, this is, you know, it was and as a kid we would all try our best and we'd just make a big mess, and then the helpers would come by and help clean it up. But you know, I'd watch those repairs. I'd watch as they would fix, quote unquote, fix my painting, and I learned by watching. And then as time went on, there was less and less, quote unquote, fixing that they had to do, because I was learning the techniques. But on anything, people, it's going to take practice. When you're learning something new, it's going to take practice. I have used this technique on murals. I'm going to put a little blue over here to break up. There's so much orange. You know, I'll leave that. I'll come back. I'll look at it. If I don't like it, I can just do what I'm doing like now and just put a little something over it to cover it up. But for those of you who want to work in a little more traditional manner and not be quite so wild and crazy with impressionistic work, this is one of those very versatile and very handy techniques. See how rough this looks? And in here, of course, that would be underneath, but Again, dipping into just the different colors. It's that half moon. This entire piece is done with that half moon stroke. And I continue to move around. That's sienna and dioxide purple. Come over here and break up that area. If you've got an area that's too much of the same, I'm just literally cleaning my brush off over there. I don't want to add any water. You want to just be using pure paint, but you don't want to dip into the water and come back and try and blend. Instead, you want to let it dry and then come over it. And I'm dry brushing over what was there before. And depending on how much pressure I put as to how much pigment is laid down. But this is, and see, I'm coming back, see how nice that is to kind of break up that big blue area. And then see, cerulean blue and white, along with a little bit of that burnt sienna, is this grayish, gray blue that I've got going in here. I could put a little bit in there. Okay. So that ought to do it. Again, if you don't like it, you get back and you look at it, just let it dry and put another coat on it. All right. See, you can just pull that owl out. See, my gray is much darker here, but that's not a problem. This is a lot darker. I just, you let it dry and come in there and do something else. So I can lighten this up. It's good to blend your colors on your palette and not here, because they'll get too streaky. All right, so I'm lightening this area with ochre and white, yellow ochre and white. That's what most of this is right here. And I'm skipping around, I'm moving around. I'm starting to lighten this area up. See there? And then I'm going to lighten my blue. I've still got some of that color on my brush. And now I'm going to come over here with a lighter. And this is not blending, this is just scumbling over what was there. That color that's underneath is dry now. So what I'm doing on top of it is just a dry brush. If you get too much paint, see, I can just have just a little bit of pigment on my brush. Just keep working it. Half moon, whoop, got a glob of white. There's some of that gray, blue-gray. All right. See there? And then I can come back down here with more ochre and white. Blending it on the palette. Blending it on the palette and then coming back over here. Some of what I put on there a while ago is still wet. See all the different colors in here? And with just a bit of feathering. It's all dry brushing over that darker dried area. And acrylics will dry a little bit darker than what you put down. So you need to let it dry and then come back and look at it. Okay? See there? But anyway, just get you some cards, gesso them, and practice. Practice just using these colors and blending before you get onto your canvas and play with it. All right? Hope that was helpful. That's just a basic blended background in acrylics. All right? Bye.